Glory Reborn was a project that kind of ruminated in my mind for a little while. As alumni go back to their colleges for events and activities, there'd always be discussion about what was the best football team, what was the best basketball team. And through a little bit of preliminary research, I discovered this kind of window where the college had had some phenomenal athletics, starting with a national runner-up in football and a national championship in basketball. So I shared it with the college, and the college kind of liked the idea of putting together kind of like a focus history about that point in time. So that was kind of how it came about. It was my idea, but the college green-lighted it and provided a little bit of financial support for it. Wabash had a very glorious athletic history in what we call the early days of intercollegiate athletics. It won the first intercollegiate football game played in the state of Indiana. It had an intercollegiate baseball game that goes back to the Civil War times. It had an intercollegiate basketball team that actually won the national championship in 1907-08, 1921-22, and again in 1924-25. In fact, they won what would have been considered the Final Four back in 1921-22, and I ran across the article in the New York Times that identified them as winning that tournament. Wabash was kind of big way back when. And then they changed its emphasis onto academics over athletics, and they made it through the Great Depression with some, alumni getting upset about losing this big sports thing, and the kind of glory faded. People began to forget about that. People began to ignore kind of like this glorious athletics past. And then in the early 1970s, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, changed its guidelines for scholarships, and they created this new division called Division III Athletics, which is you cannot give out scholarships. You can only give out aid based on need, financial need. And Wabash instantly said, we're going to be in Division III. And when they did that, within a couple of years of doing that, they went to the national championships in football, and then 5 years after that, they won the national championship in basketball. So, Glory Reborn. That was kind of how the title came about. The difficulty wasn't in the quantity. The difficulty was probably in eliciting the quality. I might hear a little bit of a story from one person, so then I'd go to another one and try to get more detail and more information about it. Somebody had identified a specific incident that happened at a basketball game, but they didn't know when. So I had to then go back and look into the archives, and the college has a phenomenal archives, and then also talk with a couple of people who were there and try to nail down with specificity when exactly did this incident happen. And then once I was able to do that, then I was able to find more news accounts and get a couple of people to add on to that. It was a challenge well worth doing. I was able to tell the stories of hundreds of student athletes and tell a story about some developments and interesting things going on in the life of the college at the time that would probably have never seen the light of day if I hadn't tackled that. Figured out a way to spend more time on campus with students and faculty and staff as soon as the book came out, which I really couldn't do. We timed the book to come out in conjunction with the 35th anniversary of the National Championship basketball team, which was during the basketball season, which is winter in the Midwest. So I went to Indiana for a weekend, but because of lots of other things, I just couldn't go back. Write every day, write nonstop, share your writing with other people, get into a writer's group or writer's league, get published, even if it's just your own blog. Get critical acclaim for what you do, get advice and input from people on how to make things better. Nothing that appears in Glory Reborn is in its first draft. You go to www.wabash.edu, Google Bookstore, and then it's listed there.